Standing in a building like this, surrounded by this array of homegrown local hardwoods, it reminds me just how important it is to get our woods into management. Grown in Britain works in many ways, but we're really keen that everybody who owns a woodland thinks about the value in their hardwoods in particular, because we import a lot of oak, ash and species like that from around the world, and we grow enough here to use. So we're going to go into the woods. We're going to go into the woods with a forester and someone also starting out in the trade, so that we can explore some of the things that woodland owners, perhaps like yourself, need to do in order to get those trees into this fantastic supply chain and support local jobs and the array of wildlife that comes from a well-managed woodland. We're going to look at the value of different trees, how to get them harvested, when to fell them, and also how you can work perhaps with others in order to make that a really good economic and viable operation for your woodland. So Graham, we've just come up through that younger age compartment there, and we're now amongst some bigger trees, some oaks. So there are all kinds of trees in this woodland. Presumably you've got a management plan for all of this.
Certainly have. The management plan is the start of doing anything in a woodland or forest, however large or small. It's really important to break it down into its separate components, areas of size and species that are similar, and then you can start to work up a plan for it.
Why do we even need a management plan for this woodland? Can't we leave it to its own devices?
Trouble with doing nothing in a woodland is that ultimately a number of things happen. One, species diversity starts to fall, the canopy starts to thicken up, the understory starts to lose vigour, and that has a really negative impact on a whole host of species beyond the trees. Other negative things can happen, such as the rhododendron here can just start to take over. So it's about trying to manipulate the stand to develop healthy trees, but also maintain all those other important features in the woodland.
How do you go about putting together that management plan? Where do you start?
Starts really with a map, and then gathering together all the information about the woodland, the soils, the geology, the boundaries, the stand types, the species interests, if there are species surveys that you can get hold of. There's various tools online, and the Forestry Commission provides a template that you can work to.
So within that plan, does that identify the trees to be felled for timber?
Certainly does. I mean, the plan will develop a whole series of operational activities, from ride management to coppicing to thinning to cleaning, and the latter stages, thinning bigger trees, timber trees, and felling.
Now, it's really important to plan for felling, because I mean, we import a lot of hardwood timber like this into this country, and a lot of these trees don't get felled. And the management plan allows you to get a felling licence. That's right, Graham, isn't it?
The management plan is a really important tool that will get you your felling approval, but you still need to go through a regulatory process to secure the permission to fell trees, and that can be gained from the respective forestry authority. Okay, you look around the wood here, there's all sorts of trees. They're predominantly oak trees, but they've all got different character and grading. Some are no more than firewood, to be honest, even though they're the same age, whereas others have some different features. And this tree in front of us here is probably one of the better examples of the different types of grade that we foresters are really looking for. That first length there up to that first knot there, just about 5 metres up, that would be a planking length. Very clean, no knots, no live branches, we call those epicormics, and quite cylindrical. They would go through a sawmill really cleanly. And that's the highest grade, and it's really influenced by actually what happened to that tree in its early days, which is why woodland management is so important. Above the knot there, you're looking at a beaming grade. Now that's probably worth, in real terms, about half the unit price of that first length. About 70% of the value in this tree will be in that first 5 or 6 metres, which is why it's really important to look after them. Above there you've got a fencing grade, which again is probably half the value again. And right at the top is the firewood grade, the lowest grade, but that's the product that everyone's used to handling and chucking in the fire. But if you were to sell this tree just as firewood, you'd only achieve 1/7 or 1/10 of the actual value you could realise if you sold it all in its separate units.
Is this tree big enough to harvest?
Certainly is. Yes, it's just ripe, but you would need more than one to sell. You need to be able to gather a lorry load as a minimum, really. And of a tree this size, that's probably, you're talking about 8 to 10 trees.
What happens if I don't have enough for a lorry load?
If you don't have enough for a lorry load, I'd suggest you try and contact some neighbours or some other landowners in the vicinity. They do need to be quite close together, because gathering up a tree here and a tree there is probably not very efficient.
So this part of the tree is worth maybe 7 times the top of the tree. So it's really important, obviously, as you say, to spot these trees and to get them harvested when they're ready, and to work with others in order to get lorry loads together that make it feasible to sell into the market.
Yeah.
So what would be the environmental impact of felling trees like these?
We'd be seeking to mark this stand, to specifically take out trees either that were really poor quality or trees that are ripe for market. And when you go through and do that exercise of felling the trees, that will increase light levels to the forest floor, which is really important for ground flora and for nesting birds. The understory will rejuvenate, and the trees above that you're retaining will start to fill out and grow and suck out more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. All good stuff.
So once felled, the timber in this tree, it lives on. It becomes embodied carbon in furniture and beams and structural components into houses. It really is a fantastic natural renewable resource.
Is this ideally what you'd be looking for example, from the stem we were looking at earlier in the wood?
This is a beautiful piece of timber, about 150, 160 years old, almost without any defect. You've got some really consistent ring growth here right across those 160 years. There's a tiny heart crack here, but that's very commonplace. But this is a beautiful piece of timber, and when that's put on the mill, they will be sawn as through and through boards, either 3/4 inch, 2 inch, possibly 3 inch boards, and that'll produce some really cracking high grade planking. And that's really what most foresters should be seeking to grow in their woods. So this tree here has got these pippy gnarls on it right away round, and these are effectively really concentrated blocks of what we call epicormic shoots that both come out but actually go right into the tree and form a really beautiful grade of timber. And it's a really good illustration of what might be viewed as a defect, but actually it's a valuable defect. There are other defects that are actually significantly degrade the value of a tree. And actually, if you look up, just up the top there, about 5-6 meters up, there's a dead knot which a woodpecker will have carved out and created a home, but actually now it's become a bee's nest. And in fact, that rot hole will probably be dropping down 2 meters, 2.5 meters.
So these can create some fantastic character inside the tree for the planking. But as you pointed out, you know, the hole on this tree, which is used by woodpeckers and bees, maybe this would be a tree that would be left for wildlife because its value is reduced, because it's probably hollow quite far down because of that hole.
Yes, absolutely, Dougal. I mean, that's the kind of things we would pick up as you're going through marking a stand. You'd be looking out for micro-habitats like that and keeping those trees. You may have noticed as we walked through the woods, there's quite a few bird boxes. In fact, this wood hosts quite a lot of pied flycatchers, and those are the kind of trees, again, we'd want to keep. They're really important parts of the whole system here.
So here you've spoken about positive defects that will add to the value. What about negative defects which will actually devalue the timber?
There are some significant defects that value timber, both externally and internally. Trees with really heavy knots, heavy branches, heavy forks, really quite degrade, and that will take the value of that tree down considerably. There are also shakes, which are internal stresses in the tree, which aren't always easy to spot. Just occasionally on the outside of a tree you can see, yes, that it definitely has a shake. And what that means is when the tree is put on a saw bench, it actually starts to crack and open up, and actually significantly devalues the tree.
So this is a fantastic ash tree, Graham, that's sitting amongst this oak wood. Is this tree valuable? It's a good size.
Certainly is quite a valuable tree, this one. It's again beautifully cylindrical. There's a slight sweep in it as you look up it, but it'll probably be relatively clean and white inside. There's good sign to show that. The bark is quite young for what is a mature tree, and it would sell very well into the market.
When's the best time to fell white hardwoods?
The best time to fell whitewoods I mean beech, sycamore, ash, would be from about November through to late February, early March, when the sap's starting to rise again. With the seasons getting shorter, that's quite a narrow window to operate in.
What would this be used for?
Most of the whitewoods that are felled and worked in this country are used for either furniture or flooring. This particular tree here, that first length there, is a good enough grade for the seat market, which actually replaced elm when we lost elm through Dutch elm disease. Ash was the species that started using those large single piece seats that you'll see in furniture. Okay, I've looked around and at the trees around here and decided this is probably the best tree to come out for a number of reasons. There's a bit of a sweep here. There's a little bit of looks like there might be a little bit of a shake line here. This is really just a tree that's going to improve the stand. The crown is very tight. The trees around it need some further space, so I'm going to mark this tree here as well.
So we're in the middle of a wood here, Graham. There's a small ride here. We're quite a long way from the road. How are we going to get this out of the wood and onto the road and away to the sawmill?
Well, there's really two options. It would be possible to carry on marking the stand, gather together a whole parcel, might be 20, 30, 40, 100 trees possibly. Mark them up, they would need measuring, and then put those out as what's called a standing parcel, i.e. Present it to the market and allow the buyers to come in and say, I'll give you your best offer for these 30 trees or so. The alternative would be to work it yourself and get the timber to roadside, and that would involve engaging a really specialist contractor, a hardwood timber contractor, get them to fell the trees, delimb the trees, take the top off and break down the firewood, and then extract the lengths out to an agreed loading area, and then present them at that point for sale.
And at that point, that's where a lorry can come off the highway, load it onto the back, and off they go.
That's right. That's right.
So what are the financial implications of selling your timber standing and selling it roadside?
The buyers will price in risk because they're not quite sure about the quality of the timber. Once it's presented at roadside, everybody's clear, so you tend to achieve a higher price when you present timber at roadside.
How do you know that you're getting good value for your timber?
Always ask for multiple offers from the people who are out there wanting to buy. Never accept a single offer.
So this was all clear 25 years ago?
Absolutely, the site was completely cleared, and the current owner bought the site and replanted it, planted it quite densely. There's 5 or 6 primary species in here, but really we're wanting we want the oak to win. And if the oak's got to succeed, it needs space for the canopy to develop. We've got that clean stem that is really quite important to establish early on.
So you like this oak? This oak you really like. This is one of your final crop trees.
Final crop trees. That'll be one of my favourite trees. Yes. And then you're gradually then looking to remove some of perhaps that weaker oak behind you. Yeah. There's a very, very slim oak here. There's another slim oak here. It's all about trying to focus the effort on the winners.
And that's the process of thinning then to select your timber?
That is the process of thinning, and that happens 5, 6, 7 times over a rotation, if not more.
So the person who planted this had one eye on the future to keep the cycle going?
So yes, the owner has really done this for the benefit of future generations. He won't see these come to maturity. That's the nature of forestry. We've got another 100 years or so before these mature. But he's put the time and the effort and the investment in, and it will really reap dividends for others.
Thanks so much to Graham and Kelly for talking us through some of the principles of felling and harvesting homegrown timber. I mean, it's really important, isn't it? Because we don't want to be importing these pieces of timber from abroad when we can grow them here. This is a fantastic piece of oak. It could easily be made from the tree you saw featured in the film. And in the film you also saw a very nice ash tree, and that can be made into flooring, but also parts of it can be steam bent into great traditional furniture like this. Hopefully the film has maybe asked a little question in your mind to go and look at your woodlands again. Have the confidence to fell trees, get them managed, replace them, and of course create this fantastic array of products.